All right, welcome. Becoming Uncommon. I'm here with Coach Veney, and in the Becoming Uncommon podcast, we really want to explore what greatness is and that really unique path to get there. And sometimes when you're there and you're a leader and you're working with individuals, you have to take unique steps to be able to optimize the individuals you're working with. And I'm fortunate enough to be sitting with somebody I can call a friend, a mentor. When we talk about collegiate coach, he's seen it all. When it comes to the curriculum and creating education for the sport of track and field, master coach, and most importantly, husband and father, we have none other than Coach Tony Veney. When it comes to you, please introduce yourself and give us some of your background and what you're currently up to.
Well, currently, I was just promoted to the head track and field coach and cross-country coach here at Chapman University. I came on board in my 49th year coaching as an assistant coach because I thought I wanted to get away from the head coaching grind, and they just sort of pulled me back in. And just thanking God that they felt comfortable enough and felt that the transition was going to be a smooth one for the athletes. Prior to that, or let me just back up a little bit, born and raised in Compton, California, and went to Centennial High School in Compton, ran 152 and 417, went on and had a nice career at UCLA. I'm still one of the top 11 fastest 800 meter men in school history, was part of 2 national championship teams. We were second the other 2 years, back with the legendary Jim Bush, John Smith, who was Maurice Green's coach, Otto Bolden's coach, great sprinters through the 90s and early 2000s, was a teammate of mine. I was a freshman when he was a senior and learned a lot from John, and sort of got the bug when I was really young as a kid. After watching the 68 Olympic Games, right after the closing ceremonies, I went outside and started gathering all the boys in the neighborhood, and we started running against each other. And one day my mom came home and was horrified to see the box springs from the bed in my bedroom stacked up in the front yard with bamboo sticks. And we were all doing the Fosbury Flop in the front yard. And I guess I knew at that point that I wanted to teach and coach. And not long after I graduated from UCLA, Jim Bush said, there's an opening for a women's track coach at Occidental College. They're starting the program. And I went over and interviewed. And after the interview, they said, well, can you start Monday? And I said, well, don't you want to interview other people? They said, look, you want the job or not? Yeah, I didn't know what was going on. And it was $200 for the year, cross country and track. They split it up into 2 checks, and I took out taxes. And my then fiance, wife to be, Chloe, was happy that I was working full time teaching in the classroom. So I was part of the Oxy program, and then the program elevated me to assistant cross country coach for the men. And we were actually national champs in cross country. I like to think that I had a small part in that. Okay. And after that, started to teach at St. Bernard's High School. Spent 4 years there. Had a boy run 409 in the mile, 154. Wow. Had some really decent success there. And went to a college clinic, a coaching clinic in Orange County. And I saw an advertisement for Capo Valley High School. And they had a girls 4x4 that had broken 4 minutes. And I thought, wow, let me go over there and let me coach there. One of my mentors had told me, Tony, you have to be careful because as a coach, you can't be a blind dog in a meat house because you smell meat everywhere and you end up just running in different directions. And I went to Capo Valley, had a great time, but I couldn't move from Inglewood, where I was living, out into Orange County. It just didn't work out for me. So I took 2 years off and taught at a little Catholic school in San Pedro called our Holy Trinity. And I was sitting at a track meet with Don Stramitz, longtime coach from Cal State Northridge. Yeah. And I even asked him, I said, Coach Stram, you know anybody that needs a decent assistant coach? And Stram said, I do. And I said, well, great, I'd like to apply for your job. And he goes, well, can you coach the throws? And I went, well, I've never coached the throws. I said, when does school start? He goes, it's 6 weeks. He goes, I'll be your throws coach in 6 weeks. And I coached the jumps and the throws at Cal State Northridge for about 3 years. Then Stram turned the sprints, hurdles, and jumps over to me, and it sort of took off. And just loved, even with my distance background, coaching the sprints because I had a clean slate up here. And I ended up getting with the right people. But the first thing that Jim taught me, he says, Tony, when you start coaching, find mentors. Mm-hmm. Find people that will allow you to sit and ask lots of questions. And it really worked out well. I ended up moving over to Cal State LA to be the head women's track and cross country coach. And I coached the men's cross country team as well. And then out of the blue, one of my mentors, Gary Winkler, who was at the University of Illinois at the time, said Oregon was looking for an assistant coach, sprint, hurdle, jump type. And I went up there and interviewed, and it was a great job opportunity. And I thought, God, I get to get back in with the Pac. And see, back then it was Pac-10. Mm-hmm. When I ran, it was Pac-8. And so see the conference change. And I was with the Ducks for 3 years. And Martin Smith, my head coach, told me, Tony, after about 3 years, you're going to start, because we're a high-profile program, you're going to start getting attention. And Portland State called, and they had offered the job already, but somebody turned it down. And so I went, well, gosh, if they're going to turn that job down, why would I take it? So I called Stravitz up. I said, Don, what do you think? He goes, Tony, don't take that job. He goes, it's a career killer. And I went back to my head coach, and I said, well, gosh, it doesn't sound right. He goes, Tony, look, I already gave Phil Knight a call. And Phil says, come up and interview. Came up and interviewed. They called all the interviewers back, and I interviewed on Friday. They brought me back on Monday. They offered me the job on Wednesday, and I was at Portland State for 2 track seasons. And prior to that, Portland State had not placed higher than 9th or 10th in the Big Sky, and had several years in which they didn't score a point. Our first 2 years, we qualified NCAA athletes, indoor and out, and sent them to when they used to have the old Western region. I had a boy go from 11 flat to 1050. I had a 49 boy run 47.1, had a 26-foot long jumper, had really good athletes. And I would really like to take the credit for all that, but those kids picked the right mamas and daddies. You know, the gene pool needed a lifeguard because it was awful deep. But development was one of the great advantages I had as a young coach. I really believe if I had stayed at UCLA as a graduate assistant, part-time assistant, and just went through the system, I would have been fed a steady diet of Division I great kids. But at Oxy, I had, I could outrun my 4x4. My girls 4x4 couldn't beat me, and they weren't happy. I could just jump on the track, put on a pair of spikes, and just kill my 4x1. I mean, they ran 54. My 4x4 ran 424. I'm out there beating them and everything. But the best thing about it was it made me study. Art Venegas, the longtime great throws coach at UCLA, and he was at Long Beach State and at Northridge. Art let me sit in on his throws practices, and he let me sit in and watch the video. And I picked up little things, and Art would tell me, Tony, if you could pick out just 3 things and just beat them like a drum, other things that they don't do very well are going to start to blend in and fall into place. And when I was a young coach, I used to try to do everything. I was Coach Thesaurus, come on over and, okay, Johnny, listen, I need you to get your sagittal plane and transverse index in proper alignment with the ratio. And see, and I learned that from you, Chris, when you were telling me about your high jumper.
Bobby Washington.
Oh, Bobby Washington, and just,
Country boy.
And you were giving him the USA track and field standardized biomechanics. And then you said something to him that just clicked in his head. And you just said, just get over it. Steve Lang, longtime UCLA high jumper, great high jump coach for the LA Unified School District for 40 years. I'd watch Steve. Steve would go over and his high jumper would miss the bar, and Steve would come over and just sort of massage his back and go, now listen, feel that little pressure that I'm putting on your back? He goes, now just feel that as you go over the bar. Just feel it. Sometimes we get too smart for our own good because we get so full of information that we feel we just need to dump it on kids. And my high school coach once told me when I was nervous before a race, Veney, how many guys are in a race? I said 9. He said, beat 8. And I was so nervous. I said, what about the 9th guy? He said, that's you, stupid. So, we have to be careful. Yeah. And this career that I've had leading up to this point, after coming back from Oregon, I had 6 great years at UCLA, All-Americans. I have a boy that I coach there, Brandon Johnson, who's still ranked the 6th fastest teenage 400 hurler, just blessed with great talent. And being able to understand that you can't just dump everybody in a funnel, train them all the same. And if a 4x4 comes out and wins a state meet, everybody thinks you're a genius. But they don't see the kids left in the gutter with bad experiences, injuries, illnesses that come along with it. And the people that I've mentored have always told me that it's not a funnel, it's an elevator shaft. 10 people get in the elevator, they all get down, and when they all get to the first floor, they all come out, but each one is better, as best that they can individually be. It's just like anything else with like the Marine Corps or any of our major military organizations, no man left behind. I've had boys break 12 seconds in the 100 meters. Their parents have been ecstatic, and I think I would have missed that if I had started out as a D1 assistant coach. Those moments would not have moved me. And I had a sprinter at Ventura College named Edward Batman. Yes, his last name was Batman. Edward was in the 8th heat of the 200 meters at our conference meet. And the gun went off and he was dead last coming off the turn, but he was in lane 5. And it looked like all of a sudden he just surged to the front. And he broke 25 seconds in the 200 for the first time. And he had been trying all year, and he went 24.5. And it was win legal. But the 200 finish was on the backstretch. He hit the finish, jogged all the way around the track until he got to the front of us. Now, our tents are on the home stretch. My athletes are going berserk. They see him win. They see his time come up on the board. They're shaking the tents. They're screaming. His parents are they're crying. As he jogs by us to pick up his gear, he points up at us. It's been almost 20 years since that happened. It still gives me the chills because of what the sport gave him. Yeah. Along with that $2,000 check his parents sent us as appreciation for getting their boy around the track and having that moment. Yeah. All kidding aside, but athletes like that. I was offered an opportunity to go to China and spend a year there coaching. And of course, 2 days after I land, I hear about this coronavirus. So now I'm stuck in China for 10 months. Wasn't able to leave the country, FaceTiming my wife every day. That was an extraordinary experience. But still, I was able to call on the mentorship of the people that had helped me the most. Brooks Johnson, who passed away a year ago, was one of my best. Because Brooks would cuss you out sooner than speak kindly to you. And that's one of the things he would do. And sometimes Brooks would get after me and I'd apologize. And then he'd curse me out for apologizing. But it was timely. He did some things. Wes Williams down at San Diego at Mesa College. Wes would call me, great man of God. And he would talk to me when I would have some rough times in China. He says, Tony, this is your wilderness experience. He says, this is like that 40 days of fasting and praying that Christ went through. And Wes, he and I were talking about that just 2 days ago and how my faith has helped to shape my viewpoint of coaching, how it's helped me raise my boys. I've got 3 beautiful grandchildren, a wife of 49 years. The sport has taught me how to be resilient. And the sport has also taught me how to don't miss or don't take advantage of the failures. Yeah. When things go wrong, we have to be good enough coaches to be able to glean something from the negative. Let's face it, the best athletes we've ever seen in this country have not been Olympic champions and world record holders because of a soft life. More than likely, it's been because of some turmoil, something that's happened to them, something that's tested their mettle. And that's happened to me as an athlete. It's happened to me as coaches. I had a great group of young people here at Chapman. We went to the national championships, and we couldn't have spit the bit any further than we did at the championships. All we had to do was run the times that got us to the meet, and we would have been the first sprint All-Americans in the school's history. My 4x1 bobbled a pass. My 4x4 was moving into contention. We were on our way to, my third leg was running beautifully. She had brought us back, and we were about to move into second place. And if we had been second, my acre leg, she was going to hold second. Mm-hmm. And as she moved out, she bumped a girl and they DQ'd us. And the DQ didn't hurt me nearly as much as seeing my girl cry. And she looked at me with tears running down her face, said, "Coach Veney, I didn't mean to do it. It took me an hour to talk her off a ledge." She was with her parents and she just kept crying. And I said, "Sweetheart, it's just a love." I said, "It just goes like that."
Yeah.
And to make matters even worse, in that particular moment, her mother, I was her mother's 8th grade teacher at Holy Trinity Junior. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. So, to see this, so here I am coaching the daughter of someone who still tells me to this day I was one of her favorite teachers in her English. No, I was her 7th grade teacher, And to see things like that, and that's been the hardest thing for me as a coach, when I have known that they were ready, and it hurts them.
Yeah.
But with 50 kids, sometimes I die 50 times.
Yeah.
That's hard. I can see why people stop coaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I had a boy run 46.5. He was top 8 in the nation, and we went to a last chance meet, and he just goes berserk. Brings us from way behind, runs 45.2 on the relay. But the effort wrecked him, and he was so beat up, he couldn't perform at the level that was representative at the nationals. And it just, those types of things, you're great. There's video of me timing his split and looking up and looking down and looking up and looking, because I couldn't believe that he had showed up like that. But then afterwards, he could barely walk for 2 days. And, trying to get him ready for the meet, and he looked great, but he got up to about 300 meters, and then he was just tapped out. He had gone further than his body could take him. And after the race, I just have to tell him, this is what sports is about. Yeah. What are you going to do now? And I spent a 5-hour flight from the East Coast blocking workouts, writing down what we're going to do, looking at everything we had done. And of course, when he gets hurt after that relay split, of course, I'm looking at my logs, trying to find out, was it me?
Yeah.
Which way does it go? And that's when my mentors have been the most helpful. Mm-hmm. And they all say the same thing. "Tony, you can't run, jump, and throw for them. They have to do it themselves." Yeah. And they all tell me, this is, "We know that you're paranoid enough that you didn't overtrain them. So just, I'd rather have a kid a little out of shape, healthy, than in awesome shape and broken."
Yep.
Because they can get in shape at the meet.
Oh yeah, I feel that from you.
They can do some things. And so now here I am at Chapman, and next January will be my 50th year coaching.
Wow.
And I, of anything that I thought I was going to be able to do. And my friends and younger coaches, they keep asking me when I'm going to retire. And my mom taught me something that I thought was really timely. Living in Compton years ago, and my dad had been disabled in a construction accident, so my mom would go to other people's homes and clean their homes, and sometimes I'd go with her, and she'd spend 8 hours cleaning someone's house, and she'd get $35 for it. Just being able to appreciate, hard work, focus, things of that nature. And I asked my mom, I says, "Well, my dad passed away after I got married." I said, "You can come and live with us." And she goes, "No, I like living in my own house on my own." And she said, and I said, well, at least you could stop doing. And she says, no, I'm going to keep working.
Yeah.
She goes, because I'd rather wear out than rust. And that has stuck in my head forever, because it's interesting how driven we all are as coaches, as educators, that when we lose it, when we don't have to do it anymore, it changes our life's trajectory sometimes. And there's something in us that keeps us going. Not long after he retired, Joe Paterno died. Not long after he retired, Bear Bryant died. Whatever it is that's driving us, I'm sorry, if that's what's driving me, I'm going to go until all of a sudden I just a puff of dust. and all of a sudden I just explode. There's nothing left but a pair of shoes and a stopwatch, because I want to keep going. And because I love science fiction, I have to use this. There was an old Star Trek movie in which Spock came in contact with his brother, and they were trying to find what was considered to be heaven. It was called Shakari. Spock's brother, I could never understand, how can 4 dudes overpower the entire Enterprise? They got 500 people on board. Did somebody just phaser somebody and just kill somebody?
They're probably Union. They're on break.
Maybe they're on break. Yeah. He says, "No, I'm sorry, I can't
fight between 8 and 3."
Hey, and it's 7:30, so I ain't doing it. And they finally make it. And Spock's brother had the extraordinary psychic ability to make people view their greatest painful moments, and he could take it from them. He goes, he says, I can see you have a lot of pain. Let me take your pain from you. And he walked up to Captain Kirk and said, I can see you have a lot of pain. Let me take your, and Kirk said, stay away from me. I need my pain. He says, my pain is what drives me. And I take solace in that, because it's not necessarily the pain or the disappointment that comes from it, but coaching drives me. Teaching drives me. My 14-year-old, about to be 14-year-old grandson just started running the hurdles, and he sends me video, and I'm sitting at home watching video, and I'm taking his video and putting it on my timing software, and I'm breaking down his touchdowns in between the hurdles, and it's given me new life, to know, and he loves it, and he calls me up, Papa Bear, here's my latest video, and he ran his first 400 on the 4x4. He lit off the relay. They got boat raced, so he sent me a little text message saying they took me off the relay. So, but he loves the highs. He's running the intermediates as well. He likes them, and I have been blessed. I think I have been blessed more than most men deserve, with my family, my sport, my friends like you. It's an amazing life, and I'm so glad to have it, and I'm so glad that you felt it was pertinent for me to sit here and gab for all this time and talk about my experience and how my life has been shaped. But more than anything else, how my life has been shaped by this sport. There's just nothing like it. There's just nothing like track and field. And I'm, like I said, I'm just really blessed and fortunate to have had this opportunity. And I thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Oh, no. For me, it's one of those things that had to happen. If I was going to do this, because you've shared quotes that, you picked up from me. I have a laundry list of things I've stole from you. It goes deep. And, it's funny because there's things I've stole from you that I don't even realize I stole from you. They're just now just who I am. It's just part of what I do.
Damn you.
Yeah, no.
Just stealing stuff from me.
Yeah. Well, you know how I learned how to steal stuff?
Yeah, I think I'd be in prison with no possibility for parole if this ever went to a court of law.
That's just how it goes. But when it comes to when I'm thinking about especially the concept of becoming uncommon, just because for me, it's we always if I go back and ask young Tony Veney before he got to Occidental, what was he going to do? What was going to be his career in 10 years? You would have told me what?
I would have told you I want to be coach of the year. I want to coach Olympians. I want to see a kid on the podium. I want to hear the national anthem. Because when I started coaching, I knew I wasn't good enough to be that person. But starting from when I was a kid and rounding up the boys in the neighborhood and I had my father's wristwatch and just a ticking, and I would just say go, and it would hit 12. And I go, okay, you ran this in 6 seconds. And I had a record board that the boys in the neighborhood could see.
No.
It just seemed natural to me. And I have to give my sister Debbie credit, because when I was in kindergarten, even before I was in kindergarten, my sister was in, I think, first or second grade, and she would come home from school and she would have school, and she would make me sit down, and she had a little chalkboard, and she taught me my ABCs. She taught me how to count to 100. I knew my colors. I knew all of those things. Plus, as my mother stated, I was a hellion. So she went to the local school district and said, yes, he's 5. I was 4. She goes, and they were saying, well, Mrs. Veney, your boy's really bright. He knows his colors, his shapes, and everything. It was because of my sister. And she kind of gave me this love of learning, and how it was the reinforcement that she gave me was not wrong, be better.
Yeah.
Wow. Not that answer. She goes, well, it's not that number, but what other number could it be? Mm-hmm. What other color could it be? Situations like that. And it just, seeing coaches, to me, gosh, what better job is there than to be a coach? And after all these years, I think, gosh, I can't imagine how many of my athletes call me back now. Send me notes, things like that. Not only just, I've got dozens of athletes who are grandparents themselves. It's extraordinary. And to meet them and to have small children come up to me and go, "You're Coach Veney?"
Wow.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I just, I've heard and I've seen testimonials on television about football coaches and how their athletes felt about them. But I've coached athletes in over 20 events. And I get, every time there's an anniversary, my athletes know when my birthday comes up. They know when my anniversary comes up. And they love my wife. My wife has been, and shout out to Chloe, the greatest coaching wife ever. For her to let me do this and to never, well, not in the last 30 years. Yeah, to almost never have a problem with it.
Yeah.
And she found out firsthand when she came to some of the meets, and the kids would talk to her about, Coach Veney. She would tell me about how sometimes I've jammed them up, and how at the moment it hurt, but they're in their 50s and 60s now, and they see it and they fall back on it. I've had athletes just quit teams and come back and say, "Coach, I'm really glad you stuck to your guns and didn't." I had a 26-foot long jumper at Cal State Northridge who had qualified for indoor nationals. He was 5th in the nation at the time, and he had a discretionary faux pas, and we kept him at home. And it was years before he could ever forgive me. But at a reunion, he said, "Coach, he goes, I got kids now, and you got to do what he said, you had to do what you had to do." And, those types of things, when can you have fun at a track meet and know that down the road, those types of things have been done? They're doing more than just running fast.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, my buddy Robert H. Johnson from Wabash, a Division III school in Indiana, I always call him maybe 2-3 times a month, and he goes, and I tell him about my problems, and he says, "Coach Veney, you got to understand, these kids are sensitive now. They're more sensitive because 1993 Tony Veney, ooh, it's a good thing I'm a Christian, man, because I could have cussed everybody out. I had to use your words." And the athletes that I coach now, they're different. I can't push as hard, so I have to figure out different ways. And what I do now that's a little bit different is the process becomes far, far more important. I can't just yell and scream and get after people and, wrong, but now listen, you told me you want to run 10-5 and 100. This is the process. If you deviate from any of those things, I can't be held responsible. Okay. And, there are Standards. There are things, I don't like to have a lot of rules because I think standards are better.
Yeah.
Instead of saying a rule, okay, if you're 5 minutes late to practice, but instead have a standard 10-5. A 10-5 guy is going to be at practice on time. A 10-5 guy is not going to miss weight room.
Yep.
A 10-5 guy. So now all of a sudden the process and the standards of being now, because sometimes, I do have a couple of rules, but sometimes rules always have an undertone of the punitive to it, and you can flip that script.
Yeah.
And it says, well, I had a boy, he pulled his hammy. But then I said, you know what? I've got it right here. You ain't been in the weight room in 3 weeks. Not my fault.
Yeah.
But, okay, if you had done everything, then I'm taking the rap.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But if you're not going to do everything and I lay it out, I test them. I say, okay, I'm not going to tell you how fast I think you can run. You tell me how fast you want to run. Okay, if you're a 56 girl in a quarter and you want to run 54, this is what a 54 looks like.
Yeah.
All right. Now, take a look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There are certain things. And the 22 hours you're away from the track. What about that? What about those types of things? The track meet is not a mutual admiration society.
Yeah, no.
I don't need you going around hugging everybody you used to run against in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, listen, if the meet's over, okay.
Yeah.
You can go yell at your girl, yell at your
Yeah.
boy. You can do whichever. Okay. But it's a business trip.
Yeah.
And let's see how you approach that, because you know what I'm looking at? I'm looking at a microcosm of your professional life.
Yeah.
And all this, you're doing all this hard work to blow it at the meet. I'm not going down that road.
Well, I was gonna ask. So, is Chloe a track person? Is your wife? Did she grow up with track? Did she run track? What's her background or relationship with track and field?
Okay, I'm gonna plead the fifth because
you said you're gonna plead the fifth.
Yeah, well, no, my wife was not athletic, but she loves sports. She loves football, loves basketball, watches the Dodgers, Laker fan and everything. But my wife has very, very, I don't know if she could have been a coach because she has very low tolerance to failure. If the Lakers have a 20-point lead and they cut it to 19, she'll turn it off. Yesterday the Dodgers were having a game and the bases were loaded and the Dodgers were up 3-0 and it was 2 outs, bases loaded. And she was going, it was like, oh, here we go. Another blown save, and it's amazing for someone who, when we were first married, we'd go out and play tennis. And if I hit the ball to her outside of her reach, she'd just look at me like, why'd you hit it over there?
Yeah.
I'm right here.
Yeah,
hit the ball to me,
yeah,
and I'll hit it back to you.
Yeah, yeah.
If you don't hit it to me, it ain't coming back. We go walking all the time. We'll go and we'll walk 4 or 5 miles at the mall and do things like that. But she was not a basketball, football. She didn't grow up. Her brother was a great D3 football player at Claremont Mud, but she just wasn't into it. But loves it.
Yeah.
And loves to support. But you know what? If I had been a piano player, she would have supported me the way she supports me now as a coach. She doesn't understand all the things and all, why are you spending all that time watching that video? Now, you just watched him run over that hurdle 11 times. Why do you need to see 12?
What's 12 gonna
what's 12 going to do?
Yeah.
I have a box that has like 5 or 6 journals, articles, same journal. And she goes, well, why do you have 5 or 6 of them? I said, well, because I'm afraid that one day I might pull one out and I might misplace it and these are good. She goes, don't put them all in the same box. Because if there's water damage or something happens, then you're messed up. But she realizes that these things, and that's part of our give and take when it comes to our marriage lasting so long, is compromise, commitment. We're in this for the long run, regardless of how we might, feel. And I can tell you, she has felt on a number of occasions that, man, where's the receipt? Can I get my money back? But she is a wonderful, beautiful person that has stuck with me for almost half a century. It's extraordinary.
That's awesome. Because I realized early on that just because an individual is a mentor in one part of your life, they're probably not going to be a mentor in another part of your life. Man, that person can, coach the lights out. But they got some vices that I might not align with, things like that. But like for you, you've allowed yourself to be vulnerable and open to me because like I admire that. And so like with my relationship, when I think about like my wife's track and field knowledge, I remember always never let it down. I told her I was at TJ. She goes, "Well, tell him I said hi." Like didn't realize it was triple jump.
Yeah.
And like so that's but like when it comes to all those days where like you would give me advice about, hey, you got to do this, don't forget to do this, hey, fill up that gas tank, like all these little tips and tricks that you didn't have to do, but I mean I promise you like they have resonated with me and it helped me become not just a better coach but a better husband because of this ability and be able to create that at home. Like that's like, I mean, that has gone a long way for me and definitely always appreciate it.
Well, thank you for that. But I haven't come there without my share.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there were times I said
You
things.
lashes,
Oh my gosh! And
we don't have to get into that. That might wake up something.
I wish that my world was when I was a young married coach, that my life was a cartoon, because as I could see the words leave my mouth, I could have grabbed them, pulled them back in my mouth, because once they're out there,
Yeah.
dude,
It's done.
I have said things. My wife has forgiven me. I mean, as a young coach, boy,
No.
Sweetheart, you okay? I'm okay. What's wrong? Nothing. Yeah, sweetheart, is it okay? I just want to go down to the track just for a little while. Fine. I learned to read those signals and to realize that doing the right thing for acknowledgement will get you into trouble. My daddy taught me that you don't do chores around the house for me to say thank you. You do chores around the house because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I know coaches who, if you don't say thank you, they have a problem. I know guys that if you don't tell the press, you're talking to that guy over there and you didn't tell him about all the hours I put in. Wow, really? I mean, I've heard coaches say things to athletes. I heard a coach at a cross country meet, must be 30 years ago, tell a kid who was, I guess, one of his best runners and was having a bad day. Kid wasn't even top 7. And he's yelling, "You need to get up there. You need to get up there." The kid runs by and the coach yells out at him, "If I was your mom, I'd kill myself." Yes. I listen, there's a dark side to this whole coaching thing, that because there's so much power, that as coaches, we have to understand that these kids will let us say things to them and get them to do things their mamas and daddies can't get them to do.
Yeah.
I've had parents tell me,
Oh, yeah.
"Coach Veney, what have you been telling Robert? Because, he comes home, he does his homework, his room is clean, he's on time for every, and he says, and we could never get him to do those things." He says, because the sport requires certain levels of accountability that they have to measure. Hey, if you're late for a race, you just missed that race. They're not holding that back for you.
Yeah, no.
I had a Division I quality long jumper. As he's coming down the runway at the NCAA's, gun went off to start the relay. He ran through the pit. He walked over to me and says, "Tell them to give me another jump because the gun distracted me." And I said, "Dude, you got to be kidding me." He said, "This is a track meet. This is a 3-rig circus. Guns going off all the time. People was." He said, and he was disturbed by that, and he didn't talk to me for the whole trip, and I felt so bad,
How'd you sleep that night?
Well, I didn't sleep like a baby, waking up every 3 hours with my pants full, but I slept really well.
Okay, good.
Didn't lose a wink.
But I was gonna say, because I don't think it's talked about enough, choosing the right partner, having the right partner, that's so important, or at least having those conversations. They're obviously, yes, you're blessed, the right person at the right time, but what are maybe some things that you've done along the way to help at least elicit that communication, that trust, at least that point of view? Because it's not one of those everybody wishes they were lucky to find the right but like I think it takes work. Like you have to go through some of the trials, like you said, minced words, things like that. Like what are some things that you think you did that maybe help, establish that foundation?
I know what she likes.
Okay.
And some of the smallest, simplest things that if I empty the dishwasher, if I fold clothes or I do laundry, and when she's been out, because she's a published doctor in children's educational development, and I knew that sometimes when she was working on her PhD, I ate a lot of hot dogs. We ate a lot of pizza, me and my boys, we just, and she never felt less of a wife, less of a mother while she was working, trying to make herself better for us. And now on the flip side, I had to make sure that my wife understood that don't use code. Don't send me hints, okay? There's nothing but a track meet going on in here, okay? I'm not very sensitive to anything when there's a track meet going on in here. So when you want me to do something, tell me. But sometimes women want us to be a lot more sensitive. They want us to be a lot more insightful about certain things. So sometimes I go on the prowl for things that I know she wants me to do. Okay. Like putting gas in the car, taking the car when it gets washed. Yeah. Because what my wife will do is we're driving in her car. She goes, God, my car is so dirty. So I'll get her car washed. Yeah. And she'll say thank you, but I don't expect her because it's the right thing. It's what I should do. And you just hit the nail on the head, Chris. It's work. There is no perfect mate. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody says. I saw my grandmother slide out a butcher knife, pointing at my grandfather.
In love.
Out of love. And a half an hour later, she's sitting on his lap, and he's hugging her, and she's laughing and everything. And me and my brothers and sisters go, wait, you about to kill him a little while ago. What is it? I see so many marriages fail because people are in their camp and they want you to come to their camp, but you never want to go to their camp. Yeah. You never want to find out what is it in that camp? Yeah. That makes it. It's funny. I have a really good friend. She's an amazing Division I coach, extraordinarily successful. And I was telling her about how long I've been married, and she asked me, she goes, "What's the deal?" I said, "You know what? Don't send hints. Don't use code, because if you do, you're putting out all those messages, and you're using energy, and you're putting out effort, and it's an emotional draining process to do that. And when people don't read the messages, you feel slighted, and they don't know what's going on. Yeah. They say, while you're trying to get even, you should be trying to get ahead. And most of the time, the people that you're angry with don't even know you're mad at. Yeah. So it's wasted. Do you know what the Enigma machine is? Okay, I graduated with history, love history. There was a coding device that the Nazis used during World War II called the Enigma. And it was an impossible code to break. Absolutely impossible. The Germans abandoned a U-boat that was sinking. British soldiers went on board and found the Enigma machine, but they couldn't figure out the code. And somehow Benjamin Cumberbatch, who played Sherlock Holmes and all these things, he was the star of the movie, and he broke the code. And the Germans changed the code every day. But there was a pattern of the first 3 words. And I learned that I love you, please forgive me, and that my wife will ask me, are you busy? And I'll say, what do you need? And as soon as I say that, whatever tension she had about, God, I hope I'm not distracted, it just falls away. I know the little snacks she likes. I know, and sometimes I'll slip a $10 bill into her wallet, or a 20 or something like, I'll just, and she'll call me to tell me, me and the girls went out, we were at the church and we went out for lunch and everything. And I had to valet park my car, and I looked in my wallet and I was going, oh God, I know. And she found, those are home runs.
Home runs.
Dude, they are, look, there are 9 guys on base.
Yeah.
They are home runs.
Yeah.
But once you go down that road,
Mhm.
you have to keep going.
Yeah.
See, and that's what I think really hurts a lot of relationships. I've had athletes that after every race, we're on the bus watching video, things like that. One day, I just kind of closed my eyes for a second and fell asleep for the whole drive home. And I had a kid email me later and say, Coach, I know I didn't run that fast, but was it that bad a race? Normally we watch video on the way. Yeah.
Oh,
And of course, 1993, Coach Veney would have went, you punk, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
But now I understand
Mm-hmm.
because
You create an expectation for them.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's what happens in the fiance period. That's what happens in the newlywed. The foundation of expectation has been laid. And then when you track mud over it, what's the person supposed to think?
Yeah.
And then they start to turn away from you. Now you're thinking, wait a minute, you used to.
A slippery slope.
It really is. And I find that sometimes I have to remind her. I asked her this year, what do you want for Mother's Day? And she goes, oh, I don't know. So I got her a card, but nothing else because I didn't know what to get her because I didn't want it to be.
Yeah.
So, and so she sees her card and she looks at me and she goes, so I ain't getting nothing? And some people would think that was kind of harsh of her, but it wasn't because I had created
Yeah.
the level of expectation. She was just waiting for me to be consistent and to provide, and I tell you what, when our anniversary rolled up,
Yeah.
there was nothing that was going to be.
Yeah.
And I even told her, I said, this is not going to be like Mother's Day.
Okay.
I told her. She goes, no, I understand. But see, sometimes when they say, no, you don't have to, they're going like this,
Yeah.
So it's work.
Yeah.
It's work. And it's work. Can you imagine how much work? That alarm goes off. We get up early. We go with the team. We come home after being with the team for like 8, 9, 10 hours. And we don't think another thing of it. We just march on forward. That's your marriage.
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm at a track meet, I'm on call the whole meet.
Yeah.
Coach Veney. Race is about to start. Where's my video camera? Did you get my split? All of these things. How did my approach look? Did I have a good start?
Mhm.
That's your marriage.
Yeah.
And you have to be at the ready. And if you're not, now look, I still miss a few.
Yeah.
She still misses a few, not as many as me, but you gotta be sensitive enough to understand how much it means to them.
Yeah.
I wrote her a poem. I don't want any letters. I don't want any emails. I don't want any blasts.
No requests for
I don't want any requests. I don't want anybody telling me that they sat down and they watched this with their wife and now they're in trouble. I wrote my wife a poem for a year. She got one poem every day.
No.
For a straight year we were engaged, and I would leave it on her windshield. And sometimes they were just little blurbs.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was real. A lot of them were really hokey.
Yeah.
Roses are red, violets are blue. You're perfect, and that's it.
Yeah.
On her. And her girlfriends at work were just, he's not going to keep doing that after you're married.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I said, yeah, I won't have to because I'm living with my inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
That cracked a lot of faces too. But it was, and I still write poems. I still do things. They're not as frequent,
Mm-hmm.
but her brother passed away several months ago, and she asked me to write something for the funeral. That meant so much to her for me to put in the time, and she knew that I was going to dive into it. She knew that, and she didn't have to ask me more than once. Mm-hmm. She knew she didn't have to ask me more than once.
It was done.
And those types of things are part of our relationship and our understanding. And she and I still laugh about things. Sometimes we'll go to malls and we'll walk around, we'll laugh, we'll people watch it, we'll just laugh. We'll see other people, she'll hear things and say things, and she'll look at me. She goes, "You better not say that." Yeah. And we can be pretty judgy and things of that nature.
Oh no, because I'm right there with you. Yeah.
My laptop has maybe a terabyte of maybe not that much because I've got some drives that are a terabyte of my grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes she and I will just sit and we'll just look at pictures. We'll spend 10, 15 minutes just looking at pictures of the babies at different stages. And knowing that we have two sons that are really good young men. My oldest boy is a minister. My youngest boy teaches English in Japan. And, they're making their way. And they've made us both extremely proud that together we've built this, and we have this structure, seeing their marriages fall apart. I mean, my older brother, God rest his soul, was married 5 times.
Okay.
And I would ask him, he says, man, Richard, what's it? He goes, well, Tony, I'd rather leave him than beat him. and it made me laugh. And I say, well, I'm sure they're glad too.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is his 5th wife, Janelle, definitely the salt of the earth, most beautiful. I mean, they have lived with my brother for as long as they did. She lived 2 doors down from us. And she was, how you go full circle or something like that, and she made him glad to be married, because he would tease me all the time. He goes, Tony, I don't want to be alone. I just don't want him in the same room with me. I said, dude, that's why you've been married 5 times, okay? And I have an office. Our house has a tandem garage where you can park 2 cars like that. So we just closed that one off and put a door on it. It's my office. Yeah. Problem is, it's in the garage. Yeah. So when it's 100 degrees outside, it's 100 degrees or higher.
110,
Or if it's 20, it's 20 in my office. And so sometimes I'll set up my laptop and do my work at the dining room table. She's watching TV, Family Feud or something like that. And I'm working, because I've learned that, and I've seen it happen, if I started to spend more and more time in the garage, that detachment, when we're in the same room, we're better.
Yeah.
When we're in separate rooms in the house, the more you do it, the more you become like a roommate.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would literally have to get up out of the office and come in and sit, maybe a bowl of popcorn or something like that, and we'll just do whichever. And she's a night owl, so I always go to bed early. And we've got the TV set up so that she can put on headphones and I can go to sleep.
That's a good workaround.
Oh boy. But usually I'm up in the morning, 6, 7 o'clock, when there's no track meets or anything on the weekends, and I get up, I go in my room, I read my Bible, I pray a little bit, I go for a walk. And when I get back home, she's still sleeping. And every now and then, when I sleep past 7, she'll nudge me a little bit. She goes, I just want to make sure you're still alive, because you're usually gone by then.
Like,
exactly.
Rhythm.
What's happening with that?
Yeah.
So, it's the fact that she is a spiritual woman, Christian, strong, powerful. Her dad was a minister, that, and because I was raised in the church, that part of me felt that even despite the differences that we come from different directions, that God really being the foundation of who we are, we can work through things, and that's the real part of the relationship. Is those are the moments that make the relationship stronger and more bonding, is when you go through those relationships, when you go through those points, those when things get stretched a little bit, and and you go to bed at night and it's so cold in there you can hang meat because the temperature has dropped below 0, and you can't just be ready to cut and run every time something doesn't go your way. You can't. And unfortunately, there are 2 channels on television that are just not realistic. One is Hallmark Channel. Everybody's in love.
And it ends happily.
And they always end happily ever after. It always starts the same way. She comes back to the hometown. Okay, her old boyfriend is about to get married, but all of a sudden the spark flies. Then the fiance breaks them up. Then for about 20 minutes they hate each other, and then they come back together and everything's all. But then there's the Lifetime channel, in which you did her wrong and now she's chained you to the wall and she's using a hot iron to pay you back for all those years. Or the crazy girlfriend, I'm thinking, why can't my life be in the middle? Why can't I have that in between? Because there's such there's such divergence that you're either going to live happily ever after or you're going to commit a homicide, one or the other. And it sends the message of the happily ever after. And there is no Prince Charming.
Yeah.
There is no Snow White. Okay. If she had seen me first thing in the morning, she would have went, hey, there's no way I'm marrying that guy.
Yeah.
The gross things that men do that I do, seeing my mother sit at the dinner table and watch me, my two brothers, and my father have a belching contest, and to have my dad just going, good one, stuff like that. That's not Prince Charming.
No.
So having that, knowing that, and I asked her to marry me after 6 weeks of dating her. We knew each other all through college. She actually even dated my roommate my senior year. And I tried to sell her insurance, and afterwards we sort of struck it off, hit it off. And I asked her to marry me after 6 weeks of dating, but we agreed that a year would be good because in a couple of months, the glitter's going to wear off.
Yeah.
And then you're going to see me in my truest sense, Now there are going to be times in which I can remember being young and married, biting her, can't you see I'm trying to, and like I said, as soon as I said it, I went,
yeah.
Let's see, that's at least 2 movies, 2 bouquets of flowers, 8 boxes of chocolate, and my wife, she's really tough on certain levels, but between the two of us, we're the ones that can be easily hurt the most by each other because all of our defenses are gone.
Yeah.
They're done. You take what you get. So we have both accepted that, and at the same time, because we've accepted it, we've gotten old enough and mature enough to know that you don't go after somebody. Let it don't let it stew. But because I tell you what, and I ask myself, is this the hill you want to die on?
Yeah.
Because you're gonna die on that one, buddy.
Not every battle's worth the.
It's not. It's just not. So those are the types of things that I think have helped me on every level of my life. And there have been times in which my wife has, when I've talked about the athlete, she goes, sometimes you might just have to just go easy on them for a couple of days, see what happens, And sometimes I'll do it because I'm going, boy, if it don't work out, I'm coming, you're going to hear it from me, and then it'll work out, and I'll just go, hey, she was right.
Yeah. No, and that's I know that's a tough one to admit. But, looking at that, so like finding the right partner, finding the right support system, and now like looking at, obviously the world is changing, especially in our world, collegiate athletics is like, finding that, like navigating that world. Like, what is maybe some advice or some insight you would give? Obviously, your journey is your journey, but what are some things that you would say that like kind of help somebody that's maybe trying to be a collegiate coach or trying to find that right career path or that, what is that next step for them?
Be real. Don't be somebody you're not. Don't try to copy another program's success. Don't try to be a USC. I like to use them as an example because I hate them. Being a Bruin, dyed in the wool. Find your own way. Be who you really are. But I really do believe that Jim Bush taught me something really important about recruiting. And he said he was recruiting and going up against another legend, Vern Wolf at SC. And the kid went to USC. And somebody asked Jim, how do you feel about losing that kid? And Jim said, I never lost that kid. If that kid had come to my school and I had disappointed them and I had sold them, this is the Bruin way, and it didn't turn out that way, and they left, that's on me. But you know what? He says the recruiting process is a process. And sometimes the process is to find out if a great athlete is good for you and not the other way around. He said that's really important. And with things like NILs and portals and even at this level, on the Division III level where I am, the NIL still exists. The portal definitely still exists. And you can only coach who's in front of you.
Yeah.
And so I love to recruit. I love to talk to the kids. I love to sell. Every program that I've ever been a part of, I sold like that was the only program I was going to be at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that when I was with the Ducks, I was a Duck.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with the Bruins, you know, that whole situation. And now here at Chapman, you know, we're Panthers, you know, and this is what it's like. I mean, when I write letters, I call the kids Panther prospects.
All right.
You know, and I give them the full Monty, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and let them know. And I've had a couple of athletes say, "Thank you for recruiting me. I'm going to go this way," and I'll send them back a little note going, "Hey, you know what? Follow your gut."
Yeah.
And that's all you can really do. But if you live and die with everything that happens, it's no fun.
Yeah.
Because your job is, if you're a full-time coach, only 30%, if that much, is coaching.
Yeah.
I mean, if that much.
If that much.
You know, I mean, when I got into the business as a head coach, the things that they taught me had nothing to do with coaching. They said, "Okay, Tony, if you graduate your kids, if you stay on budget and no violations, you get to keep your job."
Yeah.
You know, and I've seen, and it happens all the time. We've seen great coaches with great athletic resumes get fired for whatever reason. They're getting, you know, now in professional sports, some of these cats can get away with murder.
Yeah.
You know, they could drive through a crosswalk full of nuns, and he says, "Well, they should have looked both ways before they," you know. But really, in our sport, it's a measure of being able to establish your own foundation.
Mm-hmm.
What is your vision? What is your culture? What is the base? You know, growing up as a kid, on Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. What is going to be your rock? What are you going to stand on? And be able to stand on your convictions and to roll with it one way or the other.
Yeah.
If the kid comes, great. If the kid leaves while you're there, if their expectations are different, and I've had athletes leave my colleges, the places where I've been, and I just said, you know, I wish you the best. Yeah. And some of them have been surprised by that. They go, "What? You're cool with that?" I said, "No, I'm not cool with it. I want you to stay. I want you to finish your career. Yeah. But you see yourself someplace else. You see yourself needing something else." And I'm really sorry. And before a kid could go, you know, I always ask my athletes how they're doing. Mm-hmm. I always do. It's not a rhetorical question for most of them. Now, I do have some that I never ask how they're doing because they're going to tell me.
Mm-hmm. They're going to tell you before you even get it out.
You know, "How you doing?" "Well, you know, Coach, I woke up and this was," you know, no. But I spend a lot of time, and what's helped me is I don't come to the track just to coach. I'm always at the track, sometimes 45 minutes to an hour, setting up, because I always know there are people that get there before the workout starts. And we sit, we talk. I've got a Dragon Ball Z wallet, and you know, anime, and then, you know, and the kids look at that and they go, "Wow, you into that, Coach?" Yeah. You know, you'd be surprised how the barriers drop.
They feel they can connect.
You know, I've got maybe 20 of our boys. We're driving in a van to a track meet, and they're, you know, Pokemon Go, you know, and all of a sudden there's, you know, "Coach, if you pull over here, I can get a squirrel." I said, "Dude, you know," and they laugh, and because it's that part of them, you know, some of them are into movies, music, and what they'll do is they'll test me. They'll go, "Coach, do you know who so-and-so is?" I go, "No, that's not, I don't know who that is." And then they'll say, "Come on, here." They'll give me earbuds, and they'll say, "What do you think of that?" I go, "Okay, yeah." I said, "You know, he said, that's not too bad." You know, so it's almost like a marriage. It sounds, you know, I know some coaches, I've said that, and they go, "Man, that's a lot of work." He says, "No, that's raising kids."
Yeah.
That's what raising kids. He says, "You know what? You're being given somebody's sons and daughters, and they're going to be affected by what you do with them far more than you could ever imagine." You know, I've got a young guy I coached at St. Bernard's High School in 1978. He is constantly, and I love him, he's always sending me little instant messages about the Dodgers, about "Hey, Coach Veney, did you hear about so-and-so?"
Okay.
You know,
he's always turn on Sports Center. You got
No, he didn't shoot this dude. I mean, man, Tom Herrera, Las Vegas, Nevada. Tom's my dude, and Tom will get it. I got guys that One was an assistant coach for me at St. Bernard's High School. He's a 25-year veteran of St. Mary's High School in Oregon. And I get Facebook bumps from him all the time. I got a guy on my team who, when I call him, I've got a ringtone.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes I'll call him. He's in Davenport, Iowa. Sometimes I'll call him while he's in class, and the Cameo song "Shake Your Pants" comes on, and during his class, and he answers. He answers. He goes outside his class. He goes, "Coach, I gotta get back in. I'm teaching my history." But you know what he does? He answers. What kind of effect have I had on his life as not just his coach, but as a mentor to him? And when he left and ran for another school, when he would talk to me about not having a good race, and I would talk to him, and it's like I said, I've had an opportunity. I've missed a few. I've said some things that I shouldn't have said.
Yeah.
But those moments now, in going into my 50th year, have helped me a great deal. And it's not an easy. I mean, in 1980 when I was coaching, the climate wasn't very easy. It just keeps getting tougher. It keeps getting more complicated.
Yeah.
If you blink wrong, you get sued for something. It's. I think what you have to do is like I said, you got to be real.
Yeah.
You got to be upfront. You can't be fake.
Yeah.
You can't be somebody you're not. I used to always make it. I used to be very. I used to have this bravado when I was a young coach. And I would make statements. And I knew they were just, at the time I didn't know, but later I figured out, wow, they must have, I'm embarrassed because of what I said and what I did, because they were probably looking at me going, what a jerk. And being able to let somebody, hey, I've had kids leave and regretted it. Coach, I shouldn't have left.
Yeah.
And at the same time I said, well, you know what? I'm glad for a couple of reasons. I'm glad you found out, but I'm glad it makes me feel good that you're man enough to come back and tell me.
Yeah.
That means something to me, because it meant that I didn't drive you away.
Yeah.
You saw a shiny little bauble over here, and you thought you'd be better off over there, even though you knew if you had stayed, you were good where you are. And so I think that at the end of the day, can you look at yourself and say, that was as much as I could do. That was it for me.
Because when it comes to coaching, at least what I get from you, and I feel that I align with you in that sense, is like, connection is everything, because you said this and I steal this. They don't need to know what you know, they need to feel what you know. But none of that even matters if they don't feel that you care about them. And that's one thing I continuously take away just from watching you coach, listening to you teach, and just being around you, is just knowing that it could be the lowest tier athlete in the world, but if they're Coach Veney's athlete, you're going to give them everything you got, and you're going to be authentic about that path. And so, I think that resonates so much. And so, my question would be then is what are some things that you think have given you the confidence to? Because people talk about oh man, that coach knows all these workouts and all these things. Well, you taught me this. Doesn't matter if you know everything, because if you don't have that connection, they don't trust you. It's not going to matter. But what has given you the confidence to maybe feel the to be able to step in with that authenticity and that care?
And you just mentioned it, Chris. It's the connection. People really appreciate you when they see how hard you work for them. And when I test, they know. A kid says, I want to run 10 flat and 100. And I test, and we're doing all this work, and we're watching video and spending time with them and showing them progress, because I test every 3 to 4 weeks. Then they see their fly run go better. My fly run didn't get faster, but look at my standing long jump, my 45-second time trial.
Yeah.
And we start looking at things, and I've got these charts that say, if you run this is what it could look like. But you have to put all of these things together for that to happen. And my high school coach, Frank Hicks, used to leave the key to his apartment under the doormat, and we would run by his house. It was one of our runs. We run by his house, and then on our way back, like a 7-8 mile run for our cross country team. And we would climb over the fence at his apartment, gated community, and we get into his kitchen, and he would always have orange juice and Gatorade. So we're in there. I think I was 15 or 16, and we hear this door open, and we're in there laughing, and we're going, shh, coach, it's early in the morning. It's like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. Now, we're 15, 16-year-olds. Down the hallway comes this tall, beautiful woman, and she's wearing a bathrobe. And she comes in and goes, what are you guys doing in here? And we're going, well, no. He said, how'd you get in here? And so Coach Chase comes bounding out of the room. No, baby, it's okay. These are my boys. I told them, I gave them the key. I told them they could come by anytime. And he sort of ushers her back down to the room. And I can hear them going back and forth, and their voices were starting to get louder and louder. He says, dudes, we need to get out of here. But before we left, we heard her say, it's either me or them. We got to practice that afternoon because we were on a double. We're going, Coach, we're so sorry. He says, we even brought the key. And he goes, dudes, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, guys. He goes, we're cool. I'm going to miss her. If he had asked us to eat glass and wash it down with nails, we would have said, how many times?
Yeah.
That moment, that connection to us, he used to pick us up in his car, and he drove an old Bonneville, and he could put 7 of us in his Bonneville. And we were all just packed in there. He would drive us from Centennial High School on El Segundo and Central all the way down to Hermosa Beach. Put us out on the curb at Hermosa Beach, 15 miles away from school, and say, don't be late for first period. And we'd have to run back to school. You know, first period was 8 o'clock. He'd pick us up at 4, drop us off at 5, and we'd have to run back. And as the season progressed, there got to be fewer and fewer of us until we got to CIF. And and then my other coach, Eddie Washington, they would just drive me to Long Beach State. This is where the CIF prelims are going to be. They drive me over here. They just took care of me.
Yeah.
And Hal Harkness, my coach at UCLA, would drive me home, and we'd just talk about practice. And he would tell me, I know as much about Hal's family. He's a great grandfather. I know about his sons. I met his kids. Just the whole thing. Those moments in my life are what gave me the go-ahead or the green light to invest myself into my athletes, into my wife, into my kids. Because I know coaches who are very close to the vest, very introverted, but that was far from my life. I don't know if it really helped, but my grandfather, all the Veneys would get together. We'd have these big parties, Thanksgiving, Easter, 4th of July at my grandfather's house. And there'd be maybe 40 or 50 of us, all the kids, all the grandkids, all the nephews and nieces. And we'd have races in the street. My uncle had a boat in the driveway, and he'd let us all pile into the boat, and he would just drive us around the neighborhood. And we're just,
like a parade.
Yeah, but see, that would get you arrested today. He's flying, and we're just hanging on to the board, but nobody held anything back. People were honest. People told you the truth. People, and my whole life has been like that. Now, I've had people who have been close to the vest, people who haven't shared, people who've been kind of introverted in situations like that. But that's not my experience. And my athletes, they know. I'm sitting watching the kids stretch. I'll say something, and they'll look at me and they'll go, what? Coach V, I said something that was really kind of not politically correct. And they laughed. Oh, they laughed. But they looked at me and they said, we're really, really sad that we're laughing. But the way you put it, Coach, is just, I tell them things about my kids. I told them about how I spanked my son for lying about something, and they would go, God, well, I'm never going to beat my kids. I said, you know what? Said the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. If they're anything like you, they're going to get beat. And people just laugh and things like that. And my parents, my dad never came inside the track stadium, but down the backstretch at Centennial High School, he would park his car and he'd bark at me while the races were going. My mother came in and would always come to the meets. She would ride the bus. She couldn't drive. She had vertigo. So she would ride the bus from Compton for 2 hours to UCLA to come to the UCLA track meets.
Wow.
Had a big Bruin shirt on, had my name on the back, but she went and got iron-on stencils and she ironed on her shirt everybody that was on the team, coaches, athletes. She even had, oh God, I can't remember, Larry Carter, our head trainer. She even had Larry Carter. She'd bring cupcakes. While I was in the dorms, I'd get a care package from my mom a couple times a month. In fact, I'm coming back up, and there'd be dudes on the track team sitting sitting inside the dorm, waiting for me to come up. He says, "Veney, ain't it about time for you to get one of them boxes from your mom?" And I'd have a little note in my mailbox that said, pick up a box. Mm-hmm. And people have been in my corner. I've had people that didn't like me particularly, whichever. I had way too many people that supported me. Yeah. Way too many.
Too many.
Way too many. Way too many. To the point of distraction sometimes. Yeah. And so I think for young coaches, and I hate to say it, but if you can't be real and if you can't share yourself, this ain't for you. Yeah. Not for the long run. Yeah. I mean, if you want to get in this and just start at a big Division I school and just bounce around or just be someplace and make some money, you better go SEC. Yeah. That's basically the only place you're going to make big money. But yeah, I think that because I was always shared with and told to pay it forward. Yeah. And I've had coaches tell me, if I find out that somebody asked you for help and you didn't help them, you'll never hear from me again. What else can I do? Yeah. Talk it out. Talk it out. I share stuff. I share Excel sheets that I've put together, things that people have shared with me, I've shared with other people. And they know I'm pretty genuine about it, because right now I'm just too old to play the game. Mm-hmm. Just too old.
But as we wrap up, because I definitely appreciate this time. I could talk. We could sit. We already know we could be here forever. But kind of reflecting back and looking at some of the things you've done and the path that you've taken. Are there any pivotal moments that you think, or could you point back where you're like, that was a left turn, I never expected that, but man, that was an important piece, whether it was good or bad, whether it was an opportunity or a situation or a person. Is there something that happened unexpectedly that you probably would have never guessed that you can reflect back on now?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think there's probably a couple of things. Just as an athlete, there was a meet in Southern California called Southern Counties. Okay. It was almost as big as Arcadia. And I mean, the Southern section would come to this meet, Orange County especially. And that's back in the day when it was a 3-turn, 800, 200 meter straightaway, a 1-turn 400. They would run their races like that. And my high school coach, Frank Hicks, couldn't come to the meet because he had to teach. He had signed up and didn't realize he had signed up to teach driver's training. And he was always teaching me things, always talking to me things. Veney, how'd you feel about that? Where you going? And we used to run together all the time. And after a while, he stopped running with me. And I said, Coach, what's going on? I understand you might be too busy. He goes, no, Veney, there was about a month ago, we were running together, and there was always this long street over a 400 that we would run to, and we'd always kind of pick up the pace. He said, you know what you did? You moved away from me, and I couldn't answer. And he said, that's what I knew. He said, I knew you were going to be okay. I knew you were going to be a good kid. And so I was kind of disappointed he couldn't come to the meet. He was a big part of my meet prep. And my sprint coach was trying to give me a race plan. Veney, I want you to make sure that you keep your toes tucked in. And, when you come off the turn, I want you to make sure that your thigh is 45 degrees to your navel. And he was giving me all this stuff, and it was confusing me. And he let me warm up with ankle weights for the 800.
So you could feel light?
Yeah, so I could feel light afterwards. So
not a good idea.
Coach Hicks his spider senses must have tingled. So he put his first day of driver's training on the freeway to Orange County to Huntington Beach High School. And I think the girl maybe wet her pants on the way while she was driving. He put him behind the wheel and he put him on the freeway. I'm jogging, and I never jog with my head down. Mm-hmm. Coach Hicks couldn't get into this track stadium, so he found a back fence and was going, Veney. And I came over to him and I saw him, and he could tell, I was happy to see him. And he said, "What's going on?" He goes, I said, "No, I'm okay, coach." He goes, "No, you never jog with your head down." And I said, "Well, he says, Coach Washington gave you a game plan, didn't he?" He says, "What did he say?" Because something about my toes and everything. He was the one that told me. He grabbed my head with his hands. He said, "Look at me." He said, "Veney, look at me. How many guys are in the race?" I said, 9. He said, "Beat 8. And that's when I said, "What about the 9th guy?" And I went out, I ran 152.8. It was a national leader. And after the race was over, I jogged back over to him and I told him what I ran. Reached out to shake my hand. He kissed the back of my hand. That's the kind of coach I always wanted to be. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be that guy. And that was a defining moment for me. At that moment, not that I wanted to be that kind of coach. Mm-hmm. That became later when I really decided to coach. But to know that somebody cared that much about me and how much time he devoted thinking about me.
Yeah.
That particular moment was as an athlete, as there's just too many of them as a coach. But one of the things that has always given me a great deal of joy is that when you and I would always do level ones, and at the end, I would always tell the story of the 3-legged pig.
Yeah.
And you told me that you had your wife, that you even had your little girl, listen to me tell the story.
Yeah.
I've had coaches come up to me at track meets who I taught level 1, mm-hmm. and they would say, you can't eat them all at once. Mm-hmm. It's a pivotal moment that happens all the time. Yeah. Once you pivot that way, there are things that happen in your life and in your career that convince you that was the right move. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've pivoted and sometimes never knew if that was the right way to go. Yeah. But this sport constantly reminds me that, that was the right choice. Yeah. Just like my wife, Chloe. That was the right choice.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, as we wrap up, again, I appreciate the time. It's always a pleasure catching up with you. You're a wealth of knowledge and information. Where could people find you if they want to hear more about you or get some information from you?
Why would I want anybody calling me and talking to me? Well, I'll tell you, trackcoach08@gmail.com, which is TRAK, no C in track, coach08@gmail.com. Again, I've got to keep sharing. I've got to keep doing this. This is exciting for me to be able to do this and to be able to have an opportunity to talk about a journey that's about to go into its second 50 years, hopefully, whichever the case may be, and to see what's down the road. And it's an exciting prospect. Yeah. And I thank you for letting me do this.
No, definitely. So for everybody out there, remember, the journey is going to be a little bit uncharted, and always be brave enough to take that turn, take that leap, and interact with that person. Make sure you're a positive influence on anybody you meet and come in contact with. But other than that, stay uncommon.